Most writers think networking means getting a job, but it's actually about building relationships. And my guest today, screenwriter Alyson Eisenband, has built relationships that's allowed her to span mediums in her career, starting with scripted television on shows like Blue's Clues and Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, all the way across podcasts, toys, and even games. So we get into all that today, dialing in her creative process and her networking process. So this conversation is just filled with great advice. Here we go. All right, this is the Story Series, the podcast for writers who break the rules. Alyson Eisenband, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You are an Emmy-nominated writer. Just a few of the credits, of course, Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, Karma's World, Blaze and the Monster Machines. You've written on so many shows, but you've also written on podcasts and also for toys and games, so across different mediums. So I'm excited to get into all that with you, but I like to just go back and connect the dots. So where did you grow up, Alyson?
Grew up in a town called Wyckoff, New Jersey, which was made famous by the Jonas Brothers, just a little band of three boys from New Jersey.
So where they're from?
They're from Wyckoff, New Jersey. So
Okay.
they've been going on their hometown tour, and they have Wyckoff written all over their back. So from the same place.
Are you a fan?
I'm a big fan.
You are a big fan. Nice. And growing up, were you always creatively inclined? Like if someone, assuming, asked you when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? What did you say?
I always wanted to be in the creative field. I loved to make little movies when I was younger, so hopefully no one finds my YouTube channel, but I have a couple of I used to enter, like, video contests as a kid, so I had my camera and I would search online for, like, video contests, and I think I made video about, like, pistachios, and it was like I had to make, like, an ad for pistachios, so I loved to toy around with my camera growing up.
Oh, so you
Um,
always had those inclinations.
Always had those kind of, like, film, TV inclinations,
Yeah.
and I always enjoyed writing. I wrote a lot of I liked writing essays in school, which a lot of people didn't. So I always knew I liked writing, and so kind of that evolved as I went through my schooling. I kind of writing stood out to me.
It stood out. And what were you taking in at the time? What were your influences? What were things that you were seeing on TV or movies that you really loved?
I mean, started from a young age. I loved SpongeBob, Rocket Power, Rugrats,
Yeah.
all those shows.
Big Rocket Power fan, yeah.
Loved Rocket Power. And Blue's Clues was one of, like, the first shows that I ever really was a fan of, and then, you know,
Years later,
not to jump the gun, but 25 years later, got to work on the show, so
that's wild. So you always had that growing up, and then you're going through high school and then trying to figure out where you're going to college. How did you make that decision, and what did you major in?
so I wanted to choose a school that had a good film and TV program, and so Syracuse was where I ended up at, and majored in TV, radio, film, which kind of felt like a natural fit, and just kind of took a variety of courses, and towards the end of college, kind of honed in on writing is what I wanted to do, so took some time, but we got there.
Yeah, it's funny, because I also majored in it was called, like, TV, radio, film with a focus in screenwriting, but it's funny the word radio, like, it's since been rebranded, like, that's been dropped, but it's just funny to hear that, like, yeah, that was, like, the medium. It's like RTV at radio, TV, film.
Things have changed.
So, you're going through college and you're still loving writing? That's the thing that sticks out to you most?
That is the thing that sticks out to me most. A long story. I tried to get into writing for adult drama, and had some interviews in that space, and ultimately did not pan out. And I ended up after graduation at the Food Network, so a little bit of a departure from
Yeah.
the Law and Orders of the world. But yeah,
So, you were specifically targeting older television?
I was
Adult television?
I was targeting older television. I didn't know that kids media in college was a career choice. Like,
Yeah, same.
there was never a course in college saying, like, this is a job. So I didn't know it existed until, after I graduated and I was talking to people and realized that this is a career that people have, and it's was a happy accident that I got into it.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds a lot like my path too, where animation wasn't taught as a thing you could write for in college, and I assumed you had to draw,
Mhm.
and which I couldn't, and so it was an accidental exposure. In my case, that sounds like it was similar for you. Now, but you said you took a kind of a diversion into the Food Network. So how did that come about?
So, during college, I interned at a food production company. I interned at Bobby Flay's production company.
Oh yeah.
That was my first TV job, so I was a PA on the set of his show Beat Bobby Flay, which was very cool. I love being on set, like, I love the atmosphere of
Yeah.
just being around cameras and, uh, that kinda stuff, so that's where I interned and then had made connections through Food Network, and so I ended up working after graduation as a video production, coordinator at Food Network.
Uh-huh. And this is still on the East Coast.
East Coast. We
East
were
Coast.
based, Chelsea Market in the city.
How are you orienting yourself in that environment?
Networking with various people and sending a ton of LinkedIn messages to different people of, "I'm really interested in what you do. I would love to learn more." And so I've just networked my way basically into kids media.
I love that. Okay, so and are you writing on your own too? Are you putting together any sort of portfolio?
Yeah, so I wrote, I think, a couple of spec scripts while I was still at Food Network, so I
Okay.
had a small portfolio, but
Yeah,
still
with
something
something.
to show.
Yeah, and so you're really just trying to target anyone you can and sending LinkedIn messages. I think that's I love that, and I think LinkedIn is I think kinda there's undervalued in some ways. I think it's a great social networking platform for people that you don't know. Whereas like Instagram might be like kinda, it's personal, but that's a great way to just cold email people, right? And what kind of responses were you getting?
I realize people are very willing to talk to recent grads,
Yes.
on LinkedIn, and so that's something I remember now is wanna give back to all the people that helped me.
Yeah,
But
and
I got a lot of responses, and it was also like a numbers game, like, if I reached out to 30 people, I would maybe get, like, 15 responses, and then I'd have, 10 calls, and then of those, maybe 3 people would have something potentially for me, so it's
that's fantastic. So just for like the up and comers listening, could you summarize the type of message that you would send to people?
back then, I would send a message that was kind of like, "Hey, my name's Allie. I'm, a recent grad of Syracuse. I'm super interested in getting into the kids media space or the writing space, would love, to hop on a call and chat and just pick your brain and,
Yeah,
would love to learn more." And
nice.
that would get me in the door places, which
That's
was
great. And who were you targeting? Any sort of like position?
so I went according to I found different companies I was interested in, and so I would reach out to people of various positions at those companies. So producers, writers,
It's kind of
anyone.
covered the gamut of
Yeah, but I
yeah,
wouldn't go for someone that was like executive vice president. Like I looked for someone that was a little,
more likely to respond like,
exactly.
okay, that's great. And how did that pan out ultimately? Did that lead to an opportunity?
Yeah, so I ended up messaging someone who worked at this company called Out of the Blue, and brought me in for just an informational interview. I went into the office, and then at the end of that chat, she had said, "Oh, we actually have an open writing coordinator position. Would you be interested in interviewing for it?" And I said, "Absolutely." So, in LinkedIn message turned informational turned job interview, and 4
Fantastic.
rounds of interviews later,
4 rounds.
a writing test, a scheduling test,
Wait,
got
what's the
stuck.
scheduling test?
I was given their writing schedule, and they had said, "We're closed for July 4th. Can you reorganize our writing schedule around, the holiday?" And so, not sure if they just wanted someone to do this for free, but
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So I've obviously I've interviewed a handful of times, and I've never gone through that kind of what sounds like a rigorous interview process. So, what was the writing test that they had you do?
the writing test was every time a script for the show was delivered, they would deliver it with a one sheet, that kind of had, a log line of the episode, the characters, the locations, and so I think I was given a script and told, "Write us a one sheet for how you would deliver the episode," and that was the test.
Interesting. And it's 4 rounds of interviews, and so you ultimately get this job.
Ultimately, I was asked for a writing sample, and thankfully I had a couple in my back pocket, so that panned out. And so I think it came down to 2 people, and they put my writing sample up against someone else's, and that is ultimately what got me the job.
That's fantastic.
So, it was a
That
long process, but worth it.
that's one of the toughest interviews I've heard of. That's crazy. But obviously, I mean, they have their standards, and that worked out. So what was the show?
Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood.
That was
A little
the
show.
Wow. And where was Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood in terms of production? Was it already on the air? Was it just starting?
They were on the air, they had done 3 seasons already, so this
Okay.
was for a 4th season.
So you had heard of the show, you were familiar with it, you could kind of watch it and research it a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, how did you like that position? Because that was kind of your first, and also just being so close to the writing itself, right?
I loved it. It was a lot of work. I actually was script coordinator on 2 shows at the same time. So I was hired for Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood and a show called Creative Galaxy, which was on Amazon Prime. And so I was pulling double script coordinator duty, working on both shows, both writing calendars, full speed ahead at the same time.
Yeah.
But it was awesome, and that's kind of how I learned to write, was I read every draft of every script on both shows that were coming in from writers and proofreading every draft of every script, so, like, reading all that and soaking that in, it's kinda like a sponge, and it was a great entry point into writing.
Did you feel like you had not trouble, but had some hesitancy to just advocate for yourself? Like, you said you made it known early on you wanted to write. So did you at all, like, remind them, like, "Hey, if there's ever an opportunity for me to write a script," or how did you go about navigating that kind of first credit?
Um, I made it known at a lot of different points. I
You
think
did.
people were probably sick of hearing me say, like, "You know, if you there's a script, I would love to write it." I think it was pretty well known, but
Yeah.
a lot of, the folks I worked with are the people that are like, "You gotta earn your stripes and you gotta put in the work," and so, it took some time to get that first script, but
Yeah.
I think just
As
work.
it should.
Yeah,
It's never handed to you or rarely handed to you, but I think that's important to call out because there are a lot of people that have that, that are worried about speaking up too much or speaking up at all, and so but you have to do that sometimes, that is important, right?
of course, yeah. I
Yeah.
think, you need to let people know what you wanna do or else they don't know. I feel like I've had, writing come into my life in different ways, like when I, um got accepted to Syracuse University, I was accepted to a different school that wasn't the TV, radio, film school. Like I got accepted, but I would have had to transfer into the program that I wanted. So I wrote them a letter basically saying like, these are the reasons I think that I belong in your program, and they overturned their decision and accepted me into their communication school.
Good
So
for you.
there's
Okay.
been a couple times where writing has been something that, I've used to help me, progress my career, life, everything.
Good for you. That's a great lesson. That just because a decision is made doesn't mean it's final, and it doesn't mean you can't do something about it.
Yep,
And it's the way that you handle it professionally and also honestly, and saying, "Hey, you're advocating for yourself." And sometimes you need to do that in key moments of your life or career to make something happen.
exactly.
And you did wow, okay, good for you, and that so, Blue's Clues and You was huge for your career. When did that come into your orbit, your radar?
Right after I finished Daniel Tiger and Creative Galaxy, the first season was starting to be developed and figured out, and so the first season of Blue's Clues and You were all repurposed episodes from the original series, and so I worked, to refresh the scripts for the new host. So I was going through the scripts and, changing the names Steve to Josh, and, updating, like, sometimes instead of getting a letter, you would get an email, so I had to go over
Right, technology update.
so, had to make it a little bit more current.
Interesting. So, their first approach to that was to refresh the scripts from the original that you and I grew up watching.
Exactly.
Huh.
Um, and then after that first season, they got a second season, and those were all brand new episodes that were, written from scratch and brainstormed, so
Mm.
then I moved into um, script coordinating for that show, and they had hired, they brought in a head writer and a story editor.
Yeah.
So
And why do you feel like that show was so important to your development, your career development, and writing development?
yeah, so that came, I guess, as I started to write. The second season was happening, and so I was able to not only script coordinate but also write early on the show, and so I had a couple scripts under my belt already, so I kind of knew what I was doing. And just the writers who I was working with were just awesome mentors for me and helping me, learn how to be a writer.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was able to really grow from the second season where I'm starting to write and I'm script coordinating into the third season where I am now, moving toward becoming a staff writer. So
Yeah.
I'm able to move up the ranks on a show, which I feel like now is not as common.
Yeah, that's what, happened to me on Tots, where I started as a script coordinator and then became a staff writer and finished the show as a staff writer. And so when you could do that, because script coordinator, as you know, I mean, you know everything about the show because you read every single script and every iteration of every script, and you're so close to the writers, and so it's like the best kind of education. You can't just to be a sponge and to be around so many great people and then to be one of those people in the room, and that's what you became,
Yep,
a full-time staff writer on the show.
exactly.
Yeah, and what did that do for you personally? How did you feel? Going from
I mean,
not having to take notes or do any of those, like, admin things anymore, right? Like
right. So now I'm a full participating person in the room and in meetings and, learning to find my voice and be able to, I had to address notes in a room, and that was, like, a different experience for me, so definitely learned from, those higher up than me on how they did it, and so,
yeah.
I really learned to find my voice not only on the page, but also in a room.
Yeah, and did you feel like, the, that you were able to speak up more in the room? Like, did you find, like, that you kind of, in a sense that validated you, or did you have that kind of, feeling when you got promoted? Like, "Okay, now I can finally speak up."
Yeah, I think it did give me a little bit more of, you're no longer, like, the newest, you're not the noob, you're, a little more
Yeah.
seasoned, and your ideas maybe carry more weight than they once did, so
Mhm.
at this point, I'm definitely feeling a little bit more comfortable, but also, like, it takes time to really feel comfortable pitching on the fly, and so,
Yes.
it's still a work in progress, like, I'm still working on it, but,
Always, always, yeah.
yeah.
How are you developing your career outside of the show? Are you, writing scripts? Are you still networking? Just in terms of, like, professional habits?
Nine Story was a very cool place in that they had a lot of shows at the same time, so while I'm working on Blue's Clues, I'm also able to freelance on some of the other shows that they have, so I'm freelancing on Karma's World on the side, and I'm, you know, freelancing on a couple other of the shows that they had, and so I'm getting all this experience while, working full time on this show, so I'm able to get a wide variety of experiences.
When you decide to leave or Blue's Clues and You comes to an end, what does that look like?
So Blue's Clues and You came to an end, in spring of 2023. We actually wrote 26 episodes, which very proud of. They were really awesome episodes, and unfortunately, the show is canceled.
Mm,
Might be upsetting a lot of the Blue's Clues super fans right now. But so only a couple of the episodes that we made were produced, and the rest of them are sitting on a shelf somewhere.
ugh,
So I hope someone picks them up and decides to do something with them because there are some really awesome episodes in there.
yeah.
But so Blue's Clues is no more, at least for now. We'll see. And so from there, I'm using all of my connections that I've made over my time at Nine Story and beyond to, you know, basically go back to how I got into the industry. Networking, talking to people,
Yep.
messaging people on LinkedIn. Like it's a never ending networking cycle, essentially.
Yeah, well, okay, I'm glad that you said that because I often think that, uh, you don't break in once, that you keep breaking in,
Yep.
and just at higher levels, and so that's just the career, and so now at this time, you're going back out there networking, but now you're in a different spot, obviously, than you were as a student because you have, writing credits, produce work. You're a professional writer, and so but you're kind of same process again, right? Just
Exactly.
reaching out, and then where is that next opportunity coming from?
I had been freelancing on a show called Rosie's Rules, because that is also a 9-story show, and so I'm continuing to freelance with them.
Mhm.
There's a couple lingering freelance things that I'm still working on from 9-story. Um, and from there, I am able to freelance on some new shows that I had not yet worked on. I freelanced on a show called Bossy Bear for
Yep.
Nickelodeon,
Yep.
Faces Music Party, um,
And how are you getting these freelance jobs? Just through your network?
through my network,
Yeah.
through people I knew who introduced me to new people,
Yeah.
a lot of that.
And that's great. And there's a lot of questions people ask about how do you network, and in your case, it was you relied heavily on LinkedIn and just either tapping people that you knew already and reaching out to new people. That
Yeah,
was and then hoping the timing is right. And like you said, it's a numbers game. So you message this many people, you get this many responses, and then this many people, have something. But that's really what it is. Is that kind of
exactly.
sums it up?
Even if there are 5 people who might be able to help you, like, 1 person can help you now, but 3 people might help you down the road, so you wanna stay in touch with those people because
Yes.
one day down the road, they could be the one person that has something for you, so
Yeah.
it's a lot of timing of also when you reach out to people and, these jobs aren't posted online, you don't know what shows are happening when, you don't know if someone's looking for a staff writer because 'cause you're not gonna find a listing for a staff writer anywhere.
Oh,
So,
oh. And
they
if
don't
you
make
do,
it
it's already filled up.
exactly. They don't make it easy for you.
Do you have a moment where you are most proudest of?
I would say I'm most proud of, I think, the work that I did on Blue's Clues.
It's an
There
important show that keeps coming up for you.
it was a very, important show for me. I think there was an episode, that I wrote. I had really wanted to pitch something about my Jewish upbringing, because I feel like that's important, especially now with, a ton of rising antisemitism, and so I had initially pitched I wanted to write a Passover episode
Mhm.
because Rugrats Passover was,
Classic. I still remember it.
it was a classic, and I feel like Passover has not been done since,
It's
like,
very true.
to that level,
Yeah.
and so I really wanted to create a Blue's Clues Passover episode, and I got very excited about it. Um, and the network decided to take it the Hanukkah direction, so I was like, "Alright, I can work with that, it's not Passover, but I'll do Hanukkah." And so, I'm just proud of how it came out.
Yeah.
I created a character whose name was Lady Latka, and we went to her potato palace,
Oh, I love
so
that.
it's cool that it's an episode that, I still get texts from people saying, "My kid's watching this during Hanukkah." It's something you can revisit every year. And so it's kinda still holds a lot for me.
Yeah, something very personal but universal at the same time.
Exactly.
I love that. I love that. Now, you, in addition to writing TV, you also write podcasts and toys and games. And so you wrote a Substack recently about what it was like to write for those different mediums. You know what I'm talking about? And you compared it to sourdough bread. Is that
Yeah, not the best comparison to make,
that
but
still holds up?
I think I just wanted to show off my sourdough.
Yes. Now I'm curious about that that pivot in your career. And so could you talk about things that you learned writing for podcasts, toys and games specifically? We can go kind of across each one.
The writing is not as, long form story based. It's more, you get one line here or one line there, and your lines of dialogue need to be very punchy and catch kids' attention because, it's a game. And so when you turn it on, you want that first line to really like grab you. And so it was a lot of writing, very in the moment and um,
And this is for games.
for games.
And could
Yeah.
you talk about what kind of games, what does that mean? Are they apps?
There's a kid's toy, the Tony box,
Yes.
and they recently got into the gaming space, and so there's a new device that you put on top of the box that is like a knob that you twist, and there's a button, so, they have all these different games that you can play, and so, I got to write a couple of cool games that don't think I can talk about yet, but,
Yeah, but
um
I see the Tonys, like, kinda everywhere, like, just being talked about.
Mhm.
And so can you just briefly explain what they are?
Sure. So the Tony box is a kid's audio toy. It is a box that's a speaker, and there's different figurines that you put on top. So they have, a lot of existing IP. They've got Frozen and,
Nice.
all
So people
different.
talk about Pokemon, right?
Yeah, now they have now they have a Pokemon partnership.
Right. So
Um,
it's all kinds of licensing different
it's
existing IP.
but they also have an originals arm, so I got to write on some original series for them. So each figurine there were 3 different characters, and each character had 4 different stories on it. And so a set of 3 figurines, which was 12 stories, was season 1. And so
Oh,
I
cool.
wrote across 2 seasons of an original show. So I think that was the most similar to writing
Yes.
for television because they were scripts, they were just audio heavy.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think you mentioned it's still Final Draft that you're working with, like just technically you're working in Final Draft?
yeah, so for these scripts, that was still final draft. The scripts look very similar to a TV script,
Yeah.
heavy on the, you know, audio components and sound effects and where there could be different um, musical elements. So just keeping audio in mind as
Yeah.
opposed to being very visual, which
Yeah.
is a bit of a switch, but
But a fun thing to try to figure
yeah,
out.
a fun challenge.
Yeah. For video games. Could you talk about switching there? Because is that where you talked about there were Google Sheets that you were writing?
Yeah,
Yeah. What
so
is that process like?
that was a little departure from doing the audio stories. This is games work in Excel spreadsheets, at least the ones that I've worked on, because it's not just the script in the sheet. There's a lot of other components to it. So the people who are making the games and doing the coding, like there's different codes in the different cells of like when each file plays, like there's different file names. So this document is like a living, breathing document, not just for the writer, but for the producers and the people that are
Yeah.
making the games. So
I have like no game experiences, so I'm so interested in how this works. So because the game itself is not a straightforward narrative, I mean, right, like, can you talk about what game or what kind of gameplay it
um,
was?
yeah, so it was like a I wrote a couple of like search and find games where there is a visual component that the kid will purchase that has a bunch of images and they're looking for different hidden objects.
Mm.
And so um, you are turning the dial to figure out what section the hidden object is in. And so it's not exactly like there's this overarching story of, like,
Yeah.
you're with these characters who are about to play this game, and you're playing along with them, and so there is, like, an overarching narrative, but, like, the gameplay itself isn't story, it's more.
Right. It's a more like experienced
Exactly.
and what platform was this for?
This was for the Tony box.
For the Tony box. Okay, so
Yeah,
it's a companion kind of game to that.
exactly.
Interesting. And how did you find that format, writing in that format?
I think challenging at first just to shift my brain to,
Yeah.
um, the spreadsheet format of things, but,
Mhm.
like, I think eventually the writing of it is very similar to, I feel like if you can write one thing, you can write a lot of different things. So I
Yeah.
think it's just, changing to this new format.
Yeah.
Eventually it becomes more natural.
Right, and that's kind of what I'm getting at is that it seems like more and more writers are writing in different mediums. And
Hmm.
so do you have things that you do to, learn a new medium, like think do's and don'ts or like any habits or rituals that you do just to kind of reorient yourself, or is it just, you know, immersing yourself in that thing and just learning it and being a sponge?
It's kind of being a sponge.
Yeah.
It's also helpful that this toy exists and I have it that I can play with and like, see how a kid would interact with it. So like
Mm.
having that hands-on something to see how kids are playing with it also helps.
Yeah.
I'm a very visual person, and so
Okay.
having that visual for me is very helpful.
Yeah, yeah. And now, comparing that to podcasts, which is
Right.
the third branch there. So what has that process been like?
The podcasts that I've written, I would say, are most similar to the Tony's original audio stories that I wrote,
Right.
in that they're more linear narrative, and they follow a lot of the similar structures and are written in Final Draft and have more in common, I think, with TV scripts.
Yeah.
One podcast that I wrote on called Let's Guess Who with Josh and Blue was kind of a game show podcast, so it's almost a mashup of the games and the podcasts
Hmm.
in one, with still a story there. So that was kind of, blending all the worlds together.
Yeah, yeah. And how did you come across these opportunities?
So the podcasts I worked on were a lot of Blues Clues podcasts, so I was
Mhm.
able to leverage Blues Clues connections, and they were looking for people that wrote on the series, so
Mhm.
I was able to work on a couple of Blues Clues extension projects. I worked on a Blues Clues Alexa app at one point. I wrote a couple podcasts. So places that Blue has appeared, I've been able to
Yes, because of your
write.
background on the show.
Exactly.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but the other, Tony's stuff came about through networking and connections and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's still that kind of habit of just cold reaching out and staying on people's radar.
Exactly.
And do you have any sort of way that you track all that personally? Like, you have a spreadsheet of like people that I talked to in the date. Like, how do you break that down? Because you seem so prolific in everything that you've written and all the different mediums. Like, how do you keep track of just where you're at and in relation to?
I do have a spreadsheet. Has a lot of names on it, and I would say I used to keep up with it a lot more than I did, and I would, like, color code of, like, green, I need to reach out to soon, and, like, yellow, reach out to in a certain number of months, and
Hmm.
red is, like, down the line. So,
Right.
um, there was definitely a method to my madness,
Yeah.
when I was first really starting to do the networking thing.
Yeah.
Now it's more just in my brain of, like, knowing who I need to reach out with.
And when you're like, let's say, working in final draft, writing a script, like, are you the kind of person that relies heavily on the outline? Do you write the bad version of the script first and go back and rewrite? What is your process like?
I rely heavily on an outline. I think outlining is a very crucial step to writing.
Mhm.
But I am like write it the first time perfect kind of person.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I don't like to, write a bad draft and then go back. Like I'm very much like I need to start at the beginning. It needs to be like pretty close to what it's gonna be. And of course I go back and
Sure.
edit, but I kinda need to have it get it right the first time. But it's not always easy to just sit down and start writing. Like a lot of times, take a walk around the block or I'll go, you know, watch a show or something. And I need to be in that mindset of like, I'm sitting down and I'm writing this right the first time.
Yeah, yeah. And how are you as a writer dealing with network notes and feedback?
There is a time and a place for when you should push back and when you should just take the note. And it's kind of learning when you have that authority to push back. And I think as a freelancer, I find myself, you kind of have to take the notes because you're not in a place to really push back on the notes, but when you're on staff, you can talk about the notes and you have a team of people that you can bounce ideas off of and, try to figure out a way to address a note maybe in a different way. But as a freelancer, you're not in the room, so you kind of have to just take the note.
What are the common skill sets that you think work across all the mediums that you've written for, that every kind of new writer should try to develop?
Above all else is how to tell a story. Storytelling is the name of the game across any medium. Like you
Mm.
want to tell a story. Like, even if it's a game, game's your story. So just really knowing how to structure a story and having, a beginning, middle, and end and, um, having some sort of stakes and, um, just knowing how to have that story structure, I think will go a long way no matter what you're working on.
Yeah. And then on the networking side, and I think I might know, but advice for new and emerging writers.
The name of the game is networking. Like, this industry is a big network of people. It's actually small once you start networking.
That
Like,
is true. That
it
is
feels
true.
like everybody knows everybody or has heard of everybody, and even though it seems kind of big and intimidating, the more you talk to people, the more you realize people know each other, and
That
so
kind of 1 degree from someone else and
exactly. So I
uh-huh.
think, it's important to treat everybody with respect, and you're not going out and networking saying, "Hey, can I have a job?" Like, you wanna get to know these people.
So you think it's not just, asking for a job, it's relationship building.
That is exactly it.
Yeah.
It's not, "Hey, I'm having this meeting because I hope you have a job for me."
Right.
It's, "Hey, it's really nice to meet you. Tell me a little bit more about yourself,
Yeah.
and, I wanna learn more about your journey," and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I think when I first started out networking, I didn't know that. I thought it was just kind of you meet with someone and then you hope they have something for you. And it's not that. It's really like you're meeting someone because you're building a relationship.
And I'm just curious about your other ways that you personally network, because you seem just really astute at that. LinkedIn is something. What else do you do? Anything else? Do you believe in going to events or other things that you do that you think are worth your time?
Yeah, I think events are a great way of networking and meeting people. I belong to the Children's Media Association. I think there's an LA chapter as well as a New York chapter. And so I'm actually now the associate manager of learning and development events for Children's Media Association. So I'm helping to organize events for learning and development for up and coming writers, existing people in the industry. So I think going to these events is a nice way of not only networking, but also hearing from panelists and,
Just learning.
learning.
What is a rule in our industry that you believe is worth breaking? Could be a career rule, it could be a writing rule that you think people should just throw out.
Not taking no for an answer. Like if someone tries to tell you you can't do something or you shouldn't do something, I think that it's important to stick to your guns and advocate for yourself and really just do what you think, you can do, should do. I feel like throughout my life and career, like, I've had to push back in certain places. And I think being your own advocate and not taking no for an answer is super important.
Key moments where you push back make all the difference.
One more.
Yeah. Let's
Um,
break some more rules.
I feel like a lot of people tell you you need to have a lane of what you do. Like you're a young preschool writer, or oh, you just write like, action adventure. Like I think it's okay to write a lot of different things. Like I really enjoy writing, you know, young preschool. I love preschool bridge. I love like sporty, outdoorsy action adventure kind of stuff. I would love to write like a family sports screenplay at some point. So like as much as people tell you to choose a lane, I think it's okay to have a wide, you don't need one lane. Like you have a whole highway. Um,
I love that. I don't know, do you know Elise Allen?
I,
Heard her name?
I've heard her name yet.
Yeah, she was here, and she said early on someone told her to be an arrow and to stay focused and pick one thing, and she is a prolific writer across multiple mediums, like you're saying, where she's like, "Don't pigeonhole yourself. The
Hmm.
industry will do that, but don't do that to yourself."
Right.
And so it's funny that that echoes, what she said, where it was like, "Yeah, the industry will do that, but don't limit yourself." And so I think that's great. And this was just fascinating chat, Allison, and a great window into your career, both that how crucial networking is and just being a great writer, but you need both. And so I think that this has just been really eye-opening in a lot of ways. And so thank you for taking the time.
Of course, I'm glad. Thanks for having me out here, and I hope to be back in LA soon.
Hey, before you go, thank you for listening. If you want more episodes like this, make sure to hit that follow or subscribe button. And while you're at it, grab my free guide, The Rule Breaker's Guide to Finding Your Creative Voice. It's a brutally honest roadmap I put together, built from the lessons, mistakes, and breakthroughs I've collected along my journey as a writer. You can download it for free at storyseriespodcast.com. See you in the next one.